Hey, friend, it is Randy Chaffee here, and this is Awakened Nation with the host himself, the one and only Brad Szollose.
A huge shift is taking place on planet Earth. People seem to be waking up. Tired of the way things used to be, they are creating something brand new and changing the world we live in. My name is Brad Szollose, and I get to sit down with the next generation of idea makers, the disruptors, and the game changers. Everyday people, just like you and me, from all over, who are doing amazing things to Awakened Nation.
I
I didn't
it.
know
That's
you
good stuff.
pronounced it Chaffee. I thought
Yeah,
it
it
was
is. Well,
Chaffee.
there's very few that do. There's not many of us, anyways. And years ago, somebody said, "Why is it Chaffee?" Because everybody else, like the astronaut Roger Chaffee, Senator Roger Chaffee, David, whatever his name was from Maine, all these. I says, "You don't know why it's pronounced Chaffee? It's because that's what my dad said it was." And
That's exactly how it
and I
goes.
grew up as an only child, so I mean, I listened to what my daddy said. So
I'm an only child too, so let's get
that's
started.
now
We're
that
gonna have fun
explains
with
what's
this
wrong
one.
with us. That explains
There,
what's wrong with
that
us.
does. It does.
That's all we need to know.
Hey, my friends, I have on a good friend. I've been on his show as well, and we're kindred souls here, I believe. Right, Randy?
We sure are. We are, and I'm not sure that's good for either of us, but by golly, we are.
Let's put it this way: when we get together, bad things happen. I imagine a lot of
Uh,
dirty jokes, a lot of fun.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
Buckle up, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to talk about old school versus new school today, artificial intelligence, being an only child, and many, many other subjects. But Randy informed me in the green room that he is one of a man of a certain age who embraces all this new technology. So we're going to talk about that today and have a lot of fun. So, Randy, welcome to Awakened Nation, my friend.
It's great to be here, buddy. Since you were on, it would bless me with being on Building One's Live a few months ago now. I think it's been. I've been waiting for this opportunity. Love your show. Congratulations on how well it's doing, and it's
Thank
just
you.
great to be here, man.
Thank you. I apologize for not getting you on sooner. I literally took like a month and just went, I have to decompress, kind of
Understand?
thing. Because you know how it goes when you're hustling, you're doing your thing, and you're doing a podcast and the interviews, and you're editing and all this. It's like you just got to take a moment sometimes to
Exactly.
breathe. So
Yep.
excited to
Yep.
have you on, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to read part of Randy's bio. It's with over 4 decades in sales. That's pretty impressive,
That's
Randy.
old. Old is what
Yeah.
you're trying to say.
Randy Chaffee has built a career and a reputation in the metal roofing, post frame, and metal building industry. As the owner of Source One Marketing LLC, a top tier manufacturer's rep agency, he's not just selling products, he's building brands, forging relationships, and delivering real value. He's also the host of BuildingWins.live, which I've been on. I love this show. It's a weekly vlogcast and podcast where he brings together top minds from the building materials industry, along with a myriad of elite guests from all walks of businesses and leadership. It's official now. Randy Chaffee is in the building.
Oh
Welcome to the
man.
show, my friend.
Oh man, it's just great to be here, Brad. Man, I've been like I said, I've been looking forward to this, and I dig hanging out with cool people, man.
Oh, thank
And
you.
you're right at the top of the list of cool.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Jeez, I don't know how I did it. Do you ever wonder, you get to a certain age and you're like, how did I get here? And so I'm
Wait,
having fun.
it isn't. I've noticed that you hit a certain age, and you were very kind to dance around the mature, the older, the seasoned age. Thank you.
You're
But
welcome.
but you hit a certain point where, and I'm there where I enjoy the fact. Let me back up. I would rather you like me. I would rather you think well of me, but I also don't care that much. I maybe a little more in business than I do in personal because I still I'm a capitalist at heart, but I kind of am what I am, and as Popeye used to say, right? I is what I am, and what was that? Yeah, whatever I think
Yep.
he did. But that's me. I tend to say what I say and think what I
It
think.
does come with age. When I hit 60, it's magical. I didn't stand up and I go, this is how I'm going to think. It just happened. Like, I don't care. I
Yeah.
got into an argument with a friend recently because I laid down some bold truth. And I took, responsibility for my being a jackass as well. But I actually didn't care about his little temper tantrum. I was just like, hey, when you want to call me back, we're fine. Okay.
Exactly. Exactly.
I've known him for, decades, so it's
Yes.
not a big deal.
Yes.
But you reach that point in life, and this will be a nice segue into the show. And that is, those of you who are listening, especially if you're men of a certain age, when I hit 55, I became the poster child for who they're not going to hire anymore at corporations. And you have to kind of start to look around and say, okay, what value can I continue to bring to the table? Because I got another 10 years till retirement or whatever you have planned in life. And so some of you may not realize you have to embrace the new technology. And Randy is the perfect guest today for all of this because and this is what I love about you, Randy. A lot of people, they will start a podcast or they'll start something or they'll write a book and it is not in alignment with what they do. And you, on the other hand, have aligned your show, your guests, everything you do to your business, which is smart marketing. It's smart ideas. Let's talk about when you started to realize you have to embrace the new trends, the new changes, rather than fight them. And what did you embrace in the beginning?
Well, I can tell it this way. A, it's probably I've had a deep desire to when I was in high school, I wanted to be a DJ. That's what I wanted to
Mm,
do. That was my idea. I mean, I only don't unless you're a certain level, you don't make any money being a DJ necessarily, probably, but that's what I wanted to do. And I went to radio stations and sat and watched them. And for the younger people, put records on, that little plastic thing, and then uh,
yeah.
and I just was so enamored by the fact we'd talk and they say, hold on a second, and then hit the button and then he'd go back on air live, right? I'm going, man, that's what I want to do. And I went on and my life took its course and got into to repping and selling, or as Zig Ziglarism would be, helping other people get what they want or need, right? Um, and that's what I've done for a long, long time. But where it really happened, and I write about it in my book that I'm almost ready to get published, my journey to hybrid. Uh, you see, we're selfish self promotion here, but that's what we do. Um, you give me a break, I'm taking a mile, right? But I I remember during the COVID world, because prior to that, I built my career as an old school road warrior. I mean, it was
Yeah.
highways, rental cars, hotels, pizza pie lunches, brewskis and burgers at night, and airports, and thinking I saw myself and waved at myself right, walking through the airport because I was sure it was me because it's just you're there, right? You're
Yeah.
all over the
Right.
place. Love, love it. That's where I get my juice, meeting people and knowing their kids and their grandkids and going to their school plays and just that stuff, right? And then COVID hit, and all of a sudden that changed, right? And
Right.
I don't I don't know why, but something clicked with me, and I go, well, I do know what happened, Brad. Actually, I got an opportunity after being involved with the mastermind group where we did videos with each other a couple times a day, got used to that kind of thing, and all of a sudden, Brad, I got on and or guested on a couple three podcasts, and I'm going, I like to talk. I like this. I feel like I know what I'm talking about on
Hmm.
most things. I said, why couldn't I do this myself? Maybe I should have my own podcast as a way to be in front of my people when I can't travel. That was the original plan.
Right.
And then I started doing more social media that I didn't do a lot of, and doing videos and doing video text to customers, and just starting to do all sorts of things, all new agey kind of stuff for me, the old guy, right? And the more I got into it, the more I loved it, and I found uh, that it became an augmentation as opposed to an either or. It wasn't just a matter. For a while, it was strictly um, virtual because you couldn't travel.
Right.
But then when we could travel again, I'm going, I like this traveling crap a lot, right? And so we remember we had those in and then we was out and then we could and we couldn't. And then so every time I do out and travel, I loved it. but I also started doing virtual from the road, doing podcasts from my hotel room, whatever it took. I just loved that. So that's really how the whole thing started. And now it's I consider myself the hybrid road warrior, right? And that's my favorite hashtag hybrid road warrior Randy, right? Because
Yeah.
I really like to take all the old school stuff, but and I found Brad getting long winded, but if I'm out on the road, I might see 4 or 5 people if I'm lucky in a day, right?
Yeah.
With airports and travel, I can talk to thousands of my customer friends or suspects or prospects in a day, jumping on something like this, jumping on my own show, doing a quick video, doing a quick whatever. So I really grasp the idea of using it as a force multiplier.
It truly is. I mean, you and I have a lot in common. I wanted to be a DJ as well.
Hmm.
And I'll never forget when my grandfather remarried after my grandmother's death. I instantly got like a little brother, you know.
Mm-hmm.
He actually was technically on the family chart, my uncle, but he was 3 years younger than me. Rick Shockey, big shout out to him. And when he was about 12, he somehow got permission from a radio station down the road in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. And when I'd come to visit, we'd go over to the radio station and he would take over. At 12 years of age, he had his license,
Hmm.
and he would spin records and do all kinds of stuff. And he got the basic DJ training there from I guess it was the 9 o'clock at night till 3 in the morning shift. We would get home
Okay.
exhausted, because we were kids. I
Right.
was 15, 16. He was 12. And I too wanted to be a DJ. And for those of you listening, that was actually my first entrepreneurial business, because my dad made it so hard to ask for a $20 bill. It was easier. And I too am an only child like you. And back in the day, we had to carry crates of actual records, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
We had speakers, big
Yeah.
speakers and everything. Now you can get everything on your phone now.
Right.
So it does bring us this wonderful blend of efficiency, but I think for you and I being old school, knowing the face to face, we're not afraid of that. We have a generation that is the opposite. They'd rather bury their head in and do the computer stuff than go
Mm-hmm.
face to face. And I truly believe you have to understand both worlds, because this being able to talk, once you go over the barrier of entry, it's pretty easy. Am I right?
Oh, it's easy. I found that the more that you talk virtually, whatever that means, however that is, I guess I should say, the uh, the easier it is to talk to people if you have a problem talking to people. That's one of the things I believe it or not, I was quite shy in high school. Not so much anymore,
Wait a
but
minute.
I was.
Really?
I was pretty shy, yeah. But now I can't find enough people to talk to, and I always got something to say, even if it doesn't make any sense. And if I don't know, I just make it up anyway. So
What the hell did Randy just say? I don't get it. Yeah.
yeah, but it's no, but I think it comes from being an only child too, Brad, as we had recently found out we both were or are
Yeah.
were and are. You do tend to talk to yourself a lot because there's nobody else to talk to. And
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time on the farm. I grew up on a farm. Or actually, technically, if I'm not going to lie, which I wouldn't lie on your show, I didn't grow up on a farm. I was raised and brought up on a farm. I haven't grown up yet and don't plan to, because I read somewhere on Facebook, and we know that's always true, right? I mean, come
Yeah.
on, if when you turn 60, you haven't grown up yet, you don't have to. So I took that as its word.
It's a rule. It's a
It is a
rule. Yeah.
rule. It is. I've read it someplace. So, but no, it's been it. But it's been a great gig. I spent the last 4 years plus now in a very virtual hybrid mode, and I love every aspect of that. I love the road. I love being with customers. I love, back road New York State, hopping in, seeing customers and going and
Hmm.
grabbing a burger and beer at the local brew house, whatever you're doing. But I equally love sitting and doing this kind of thing all day. So, it's you bounce in and out, right?
Everybody has to choose sort of their lifestyle passion, as they say. Not everybody is built to do sales. And if you really love doing sales, being a road warrior like you are, uh, you love it, you enjoy it. Not everybody is into that.
Right.
And it just makes me remember that story that Jerry Seinfeld told in the documentary, The Comedian.
Hmm.
He said the Glenn Miller Orchestra back in the 40s, or they had to do a gig that was in the snow laden area and the bus couldn't make it. But they were like a half a block or 2 blocks away from the place, but the roads were closed. So they all got out, got their instruments, and decided to carry everything across this field to get to the place they were going to play, this hall. So as you know, they're walking across, there's like 30, 40 people, they're cutting through yards, and they stop at this house because the lights are on inside, and they look in and there's this beautiful family, like a Rockwell painting, and the father is carving the turkey, and the kids are sitting around, and the mother's so happy, and they say a little prayer, and one of the band members, as they're looking in and they're gazing at this wonderful, wonderful sight, he just says, "Who can live like that?" And it just, that's the best part about America. Not everybody has to live life the same
Right.
way. And
Exactly.
Randy is a good thing. So let's talk about what was the first thing you embraced? You talked about during COVID, you got a chance to be in the Zoom world and being online and doing all that stuff. Was that easy for you in the beginning?
You know what? Actually, easier than you think. Um, the first Zoom thing, I couldn't help but think of Hollywood Squares, right? Because that's what
Yeah.
it still reminds me of. You know, that just was an oddity. But that became normal. Um, I think about the second guest appearance on a podcast, I felt really good with it. I'll be honest. The very first, a quick story. So we've got 240 some episodes of Building Wins now in the books. And I remember the first one, and you've met my producer director Wes when he
Yeah.
was on. When we was going to do the first one, we had everything planned, and he's working on peripherals and stuff. And I go, "Oh, Wes, you know, you got a lot to do. We can push this out another 2 or 3 weeks." And he knew exactly what I was doing. I was scared to do it. You know, I had a little bit of a fear factor with it. So he said, "Nope, we're doing it this date. As a matter of fact, I'm putting it out on right now, announcing it." So I was stuck, and you know, I I fell in love with everything about it to the point that if if you called me tomorrow at 7 o'clock in the evening, said I've got a live show in 12 minutes, and my guest just bailed and it's live, I yeah you if I was available, as long as I got time to turn my lights on and bring the computer up, I'm on whatever you want to talk about. And so it's like with anything, the more you do it, the more comfortable you get. And as being a sales guy at heart, nothing I love better than giving talks at shows or giving an audience at a customer open house where I can conduct class or hold school, so to speak. So I just I enjoy everything about it. So it didn't take me long to get used to doing it. It's not that hard. And I like I said, I go back to only child, high school, didn't I was pretty shy. So
Yeah.
it's all doable, but it's not for everybody, right? It
No.
and just like sales is not for everybody.
Well, I love that and I say this to a lot of people, their mindset keeps them stuck. If you keep saying to yourself, "Why I can't do that," well, I never would have done the martial arts at 45.
Right.
Well, I can't do that. That person would have never met their sales goals. So you're a prime example of somebody who said, "Okay, I've been doing it this way. I have to stop doing it this way, and I have to adapt to this way." And that's very powerful in this day and age. And this is really what I want to talk about. Is I'm hearing you chat about this. I see it in a lot of sales places where the tradition is burn and churn. If you don't meet your numbers, fire them. You got 90 days, whatever. Life insurance, pharmaceutical sales, things like this. What advice can you give to today's companies, whether it's small or large? What advice would you give them to adapt their training sort of curriculum for a new hybridized way of working and a new generation?
It's a great question. one thing, the last thing you said is, I think we'll work backwards. The generation. I've sat in on a couple of good speakers before, and they talked about the difference in generations. And our generation, if we're in charge of a sales team, or we're in charge of manufacturing group, whatever, uh, the the desires, the wants, the concerns, the needs of the 23-year-old are not ours. They didn't
Yeah.
grow up the way we grew up. They didn't grow up with the way we saw things. To many people, take a tragic time in our lives of 9/11. There's people that weren't alive when that happened.
Right.
They see they see video once in a while, or they read something on it, so, oh, that was too bad. They didn't live the day, right? So you
Hmm.
can't. It's impossible for us that lived that to ever get them to understand what that felt like, right? And so
Right.
they come from a whole different set of values, a set of wants, a set of desires. Um, and I think so. Starting at that end, we have to be careful, whether it's in sales or any operation or any part of the business. If you want the younger folks, uh, we need to be adaptable to some of their feelings, some of their wants and desires. Uh, Not getting out of, here's what has to happen. I'm not saying just, Katie by the door, do what you want. If the requirement is to come to work, it's to come to work. I'm just saying that we have to understand and uh, uh, make acquiesce, I guess, to the fact that there's some things that they see differently than we do.
Yeah.
As far as sales, I think the most important thing we can do in the world of sales is understand you got to hire the it factor before you hire anything else. Do they have the personality? Do they like people? Do they want to build some relationships? Because you can train most anybody if they got some basic intelligence on the dog and pony for this widget, whatever the widget is, right?
Right.
But what you can't train is, you showed up the first day with dumpy, saggy, unironed clothes. Your hair's not, neat. You didn't shave for 2 days, and you normally do. You just look like crap. You can't train that. You can't train, reach, stand up when you walk in the room, shake hands, make eye contact. Some of those things you can tell them they need to do it, and then they'll do it until you're not in the room again, right? So
Yeah.
I think you need to hire it, whatever that it factor is, and the ability to build relationships. And I understand, I'll talk more from a relationship standpoint because I'm a B2B guy, and I'm all about relationships. I have customers that I'm selling their grandson now that's in the business, right?
Hmm.
So I'm used to building the relationships. I understand there's some turn and burn type businesses out there, and that's a different scenario than what I'm used to and than what I do. I don't know that I'd be that successful in it because that's not my nature. My nature is that we develop a relationship to where we do business together because it makes sense for both of us. But I think you have to really understand, not everybody. Not, as an owner, I think Gary Vee said this so well, and I won't get it anywhere near as well as he says it. But uh, as the business owner, or maybe as the sales manager or the VP of sales, whatever you are, not every one of these people has the same love and desire and drive that you have as the owner of this business.
Right.
And so if you're going to be continually churning and burning people, if you don't find some happy medium in there, to where, are you getting some results? And I always would look at it as, if you aren't getting results, there's a point where you got to churn and burn it, right? It's just not working. But
Right.
have you put the proper tools in place and the proper training in place to make sure that they're set up to succeed? Because I would like to challenge, I guess, in my perspective, uh, it's probably 70% your responsibility if they fail, not theirs, because you didn't set them up properly, either by the proper hiring of the right person, you didn't go through the proper vetting process to begin with. Did you give them the proper training? Did you give them the proper guidance? And were you there to help them and train them and teach them and work them along the way? But
Right.
with that said, at time, it is time to go. But I don't know if that made sense, but.
It made total sense. I was working with a company up in Denver, actually in Aurora, Colorado, right outside of Denver.
Mm-hmm.
And the owner could not let go of anything, of how he wanted everything to be. And I mean everything.
Yeah.
So I was trying to design a brand for him. My girl was with me. She was the bookkeeper and the accountant. She was looking at the operations of the organization, and he wouldn't let go of anything. And we eventually had to say, bye bye, yeah,
Hmm.
because you're going to go out of business soon. And it was this tight rein that he had on this little startup he had created. And he had taken out so many loans, like $800,000, but he had zero sales for 4 years. And when we saw that, we were like, "You got to have an MVP immediately, the most viable product."
Hmm.
And he just was like he didn't want to minimum viable product MVP, minimum viable product. That's the low hanging fruit. So we
Hmm.
sat down for 4 hours and whiteboarded in an ideation session what that product would look like, what that service and product that came along with it, and he loved it. And then Monday, he just, I guess he had stewed over it, called a bunch of people. And by the time we had this other meeting at 2 in the afternoon, he was just belligerent. And we were just like, we can't work with somebody like this. It's incredibly hard to change with people. Do you find that you get that sometimes?
It is, and I think to back to that a little bit, you've got to understand that the basic parameters of how we're going to do business, the obviously pricing structures and all those things are what they are. But you also have to let a salesperson be a salesperson and be themselves. You wouldn't sell the same way I would sell. You wouldn't
Right.
talk to customers. Well, you and I might, but you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of people that wouldn't talk to customers
Yeah.
the way I would talk to my customers. That doesn't mean it's right or wrong, good or bad. It's just my way with my people, and they understand it. So you gotta allow individuality while still stay maintaining
Yeah.
the structure, if that makes sense.
I agree with you on that one because I studied DISC behavioral,
Mm-hmm.
communication style, and you and I are very high eyes. We like to go, hey, how are your kids doing? And all
Mm-hmm.
this, but we bring the D in, which is the driver. So the I is the interpersonal, the D is the driver, and then we'll be like, hey, how about we sign the contract today over a couple of beers, whatever, and that performance side that we bring to it. I mean, there's so many skills that you have to bring to the table to be a great salesperson. And I think the number one is the I, that interpersonal,
Exactly.
almost like a diplomat kind of person who isn't sitting there trying to sell, but rather be a partner in reaching their goals. Do you agree with that one?
Oh, 100%. A statement that I use often and try and remind myself is as Americans, in anywhere probably in the Western world, we uh, we love to buy, but we hate to get sold, right?
It's true.
And I hate it as a sales guy. It's like stop selling me, help me decide, help me walk through this, and I'm going to buy from you even if you're more money, if you just help me walk through this thing because I'm also a believer that it's always set up to be the case, but not always, but less than we think is the dollars the the ultimate decision. It's always uh, you know it's always as our mutual friend Ben Gay the third will say, people buy from who they know, like, trust, and who they feel safe with, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't feel safe, that's probably the key is do I feel safe as in after this deal, is this guy or gal going to be here to take care of me? If I have a problem, are they going to be here to help me walk through this? Or are they looking at a transaction only? And I think that segues into my second thought on that is as sales folks, we have to have the transactions. That's how we get paid, right? But
Right.
man, we got to get away from transactional relationships because we always lose on transactions because transactional means who's got the best price today, right? And if we build relationships, I would prefer in a perfect world that you and I discuss this, Brad, and before I don't need to do a big close on you because you're saying, well, Randy, I want to go ahead and do this. What's it take to get this thing going, right? That would be the perfect scenario, right? Now,
Right.
but if you also you have to final thought on this too is you have to earn, my opinion, earn the right to ask for the order. Because if you ask the order before you earn the right, you're probably going to get a no, or you're only going to become a transaction. But with that said, if I've walked us through this from A to Z, this everything about this is right, then I feel I have a right to ask you for the business.
Right.
But not until then.
There is a timing issue with that. With
Mm-hmm.
when and if you ask too soon, you're not going to get it.
Exactly.
Um, you talked about relationships, and this is what I love. Joe Girard, for
Mm-hmm.
those of you who don't know who that is, he was the first person to sell like 13,000 cars or something in some crazy
Oh, it's crazy
amount of time.
numbers.
Yeah. And nobody could figure out how he did it. Well, he eventually had a staff of 4 people within the dealership he was working in. He paid his staff inside, like he was
Mm-hmm.
a separate entity within the company. And one of the things that he said, people would always ask him, what is the secret to your success? And they couldn't see it until he pointed it out. He'd always say, come on into my office. And he'd sit down, and the walls of his office were covered with photos and postcards and get well cards and all kinds of stuff from every single person he had ever sold a car to through the years. And he'd say, my success lies in the fact that when I have a customer who comes in, I'm not just selling to them, I'm selling to their family. He says,
Right.
that person that I treat well in the beginning, I get their birthday, their spouse name, their kids' names, all kinds of things. He goes, when the birthdays come around, I kept track of every birthday. I'd send out a card. He said, I stayed in touch. And then when it was time for Sally, who turned 16, and it was time to buy a car, the father would come in and he would buy a car for Sally. And then Sally eventually got married and had kids and remembered Joe Girard and would come. So he had generational sales.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're a salesperson, I recommend that you, instead of hunting and getting that meal for the day, you think longer term. That doesn't mean you don't hunt. That means that you adapt your hunting style to a new audience now,
Mm-hmm.
because you have a generation now, and let's talk about this. They're not so much loyal to a brand anymore. That brand screws up, that's it. They're done.
Yep.
And they want to know that you're going to be there. They want to know, hey, if I buy here, will you be there again? And so I think that's really important.
It is, and that's along with an area that I know you and I've talked about before. I think uh, the the concept of personal brand ambassadorship, right? You need to be your own brand, and that's what you're really talking about there. Is you need to buy from Randy. Yes,
Right.
you're buying my manufacturer, you're buying the product, and I'm not taking or downplaying the value of all that. All I'm saying is that at the end of the day, if we can get to a point where you buy Randy, then there's this funny thing, which out of the 8 billion people on planet Earth, nobody can beat me at being Randy because I'm the best, right?
That's true.
So if you can get it to that point, it doesn't mean all the other things they have to align. They're not going to pay me 76% more money for the same product, right? A bottle of Coke for $1 and a bottle of Coke for 90 cents, I'm buying the one for 90 cents, right? But
Right.
but I'll also pay $1 for a bottle of Coke. Not that I drink soft drinks, but if I was, Coke would be my drink. I would pay $1 for this bottle of Coke versus 70 cents for an RC Cola because I see
Right.
the value to that, right? And so it's the salespeople we get too wrapped up, I think, sometimes with buying into to what we're told by customers. Sometimes the biggest thing is, well, your price too high. Well,
Yeah.
if that's the
Yeah.
case, there'd be Yugos for anybody that remembers that that car was right.
Ain't that the truth?
Right. There'd be why would there be Cadillacs and Chevys and Mercedes and Porsche? And why would there be? There'd be one car, Yugo, and it'd be green or the steering wheel. So it's not just price. So but we are the worst at turning it into a transaction because a statement, that we'll all make in the sales world, right, is you get young guys, especially, and young as in age or new to the profession, is they get commission breath, right? And they turn it into a transaction. You got to stop doing that. Quit treating that customer like just a paycheck and
Yeah.
treat him as like Joe Girard did, treat him as a lifelong customer. That's how that's assuming, Brad, that you want to win long term. I
Yeah.
mean, if you're only going to looking at winning for the next 4 months, then I guess you just go sell everything you can and bang it away and walk away. But that's not what we're all about. So,
It is. And I also think there's a creative aspect to this, like creativity in
mhm.
the listening. And I'll give you a good example. I had a buddy of mine from Dell, and he was like one or two offices away from Michael Dell himself. And he was in charge of the cloud architecture. Well, he also had a boss, and his boss came from this other background of entrepreneurship, selling his own software and things like this. Well, he was asked to be in charge of this division at Dell. And he went with a sales guy overseas. I think it was like South Korea, someplace like that, Indonesia. And the sales guy was all set to, drop and get this client to, pay $4 million for the contract. He was so excited. He was going to nail it. And the boss came in with him, John, I think his name was, and he sat down and he listened to what the client needed. And the sales guy from Dell wanted to go right into the sales pitch. He
Mhm.
says, "Hold on a second. Let me assess what you need first. Let's install these servers that we agreed upon for this price, but we need to assess your needs, wants, and the outcomes." And
Mhm.
so they spent 3 months, to the frustration of the sales guy, uh,
Yeah.
figuring out what the client needed. And when they flew back, they said, "You're going to need this, this, this. We have this software, this cloud architecture. We're going to customize it for you." And we installed these bladed servers. The sales went from $4 million to over $40 million
Wow.
and a 5 year contract. Now, the salesperson was pissed and frustrated for that first month, but I think he was a little happier with the
Yeah.
outcome. And I think that let's talk about the creative nature of the art of listening, because you can offer, and I don't even want to call it upselling. It's really listening to your client's needs, shutting, yeah, I hate to say it, shutting the hell up and listening
Hmm.
and taking notes and say, let me get back to you on something bigger. So let's talk about that creative nature and the art of listening.
Oh man, it was such a great subject, Brad, because and I was one of those guys in my early years where I thought I needed to learn all this stuff and spew my massive knowledge about all the idiosyncrasies of a fastener,
Yeah.
which like who cares? I mean, right? I mean, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
it's like, but boy, did I say it, and I knew it, and I was good at it, and that's the first thing I was talking about that 13 seconds into the sales call, right? And I couldn't even remember the guy's name because I was so excited as a young guy to prove how much I knew. And as time went by and you mentoring and learning from some older guys, I figured out listening, and it gets talked about a lot, but I'm not sure it's heard enough. Is man, the best sales call you make is where you don't say a whole lot. You just ask some questions, you listen, because and if you take the approach that I'm here to interview you, you're here to interview me. Let's try to find out the best approach and make sure I'm the right customer or the right company for you, and let's also make sure you're the right customer for me. Because if I'm not, I'll find you somebody else if we're not right. Because let's
Yeah.
make sure this is right. Let's do this the right way, which is exactly what this guy did, Mr. Dell. And I think if you do that, customers will almost always tell you. I use the sell word, but because we talked about, I don't really like selling people or anything, but to use the word, customers will always tell you how to sell them if you just, as you said, shut up and listen for a minute.
Yeah.
They probably told you 20 minutes ago what I really need to know to buy if you'd have quit talking about all your widgets that I don't clearly care because I was staring out the window at a bird when you're talking because you weren't paying any attention to me, right? So I think that's the key is you're right, communication and listening and caring about back to the transaction again. I'll go back there. Caring about them as a person as opposed to just a paycheck. That's what we got to do. That's where you win. That's where you win all the
Yeah.
time, and where you win not all the time, but where you win on a much broader basis, on a regular basis.
Yeah. Ian Altman, he's the co-author of Same Side Selling. He says this, and I love it. He says instead of having this fight, like I'm going to sell you this, and you're going to want it, and the other person's like, I don't know if I want your stuff. Instead of this fight, why don't you come around to the other side of the desk and be the solution provider, looking at their pain, looking at their needs, wants, and assessment, and see if you can help them with that. And it's hilarious when he painted it like that, it's same side selling, meaning get
Mhm.
over on the other side of the
Exactly.
table and just be their partner, their friend. And I look at it this way. If you're not willing to say no, you're probably not going to be a great salesperson, because
Right.
in that no to your client, and I've done this with my clients, when I say no, I don't think I'm a good fit for you, they always lean forward and go, wait, I think we'd be great together.
Right.
They will fight to want me to work with them. I notice it. It's a magical moment.
Hmm.
But what I'll do is I have somebody better for you, and I'll just, I'll shepherd that relationship. But
Yeah.
I think it's powerful, being able to say no. Would you agree to that?
Oh, oh, absolutely. I think it's absolutely there's a power. I know a guy that's a really good salesman in home sales, selling metal roofs. And one of his things that he'll do with somebody is, I don't know if I can afford that. That's a little more than the cheaper shingles, and I think I might go with that. But I do want to go to metal, but I've got some quotes that are a little bit cheaper on metal. And he'll go, do me a favor. I understand you'll start folding up his. I understand if the price is out of your range. I get that. And if all the things that I brought to the table that we're going to do for you are more than what you can be justified into paying today, I understand. But before I leave, just do me one promise. And they'll say, what's that? Say, whatever you do, buy metal from somebody else. Buy metal from one of my customers or one of my competitors. Do yourself that favor. And all of a sudden they're going, whoa, 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 whoa. Like you said, hold on. If you're willing to walk away. Well, yes, because I can't, I have two choices. I have to take away some of the stuff that I already told you that we do to get to the price you need, or I'm going to have to cheat somewhere, and neither one of those am I going to do. So yes, if I have to walk away, I will walk away because I'm not going to cheat you. And all of a sudden they're going, "Come on back, let's take a look at this." And
Yeah.
it works there almost every time. You said it works.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening in on this, this is going beyond just making money. This is about an all-star relationship that you're creating with somebody. Hopefully, they'll
Absolutely.
recommend you to three or four other people. Sales, I think we get caught up in the transactional part of
Mm-hmm.
selling, and not in the bigger landscape of what selling could lead to. It reminds me of when I was first keynote speaking. I took a gig down in Philadelphia for literally a third of the price I would ever charge, and that was a promotional date. I got four full price keynotes out of that,
Mm-hmm.
because someone saw me, and one woman stood up in the middle of my presentation and says, "We have to hire you." Our event. I go, "Okay, let's calm down. I'll meet you after." But then a year or two later, another big insurance company is calling me in to give a day workshop. Another insurance company has me in. So you don't know the impact you're going to have by serving your potential, person, just serving their needs.
Absolutely.
They may
Absolutely.
not they may not close the sale that day, but maybe a year or two from now, they're working at a company where they need a new roof, and they're like, "Hey, this guy was really good. He was on target. He didn't BS me. He walked away because he didn't feel he could serve me properly." And I hate to say it, but if you're a new salesperson and you're leaning forward and you're agitated and you're trying to get that first sale and you're trying to just stop. What do you
Yes.
do with people like that, Randy? Because they can smell the desperation. They
Oh,
really can.
absolutely. That again, back to a term I used a minute ago, that in most savvy customers can smell commission breath a mile away. And once they think that the only thing you want from me, Brad, is my check, I no longer believe pretty much anything you've been telling me because I don't believe you care about helping me anymore. I don't believe you're looking for solutions now. You're looking for that deposit check or that whatever it is that the contract, whatever it is that takes us to the next level. So any goodwill you did is out the door almost instantly when you do
Yeah.
that. It's and there's a difference between never will I say don't be a closer and don't look for the business. But what I said earlier, and I mean that completely, is when you've earned it, when it's time, half the time they'll tell you it's time. But the other
Right.
half, they have no issue. They expect that you're going to ask because there's this weird thing, regardless of what your title is, they know that you are a salesperson, right? So at the end of the day, you invited me in to buy something from somebody,
Right.
right?
Right.
I mean, it's not like you thought I was there to well, I was going to say not that I was there to as a pastor to get you to come join my church, but again, they're in sales too, right?
Yeah.
They've got to convince you there's a benefit to coming to their church, right? So I mean, I don't care what you're doing. There's some degree you're in sales. Uh, I spoke to a small group at a trade show a while back, and I said, "How many of you guys in sales?" And the typical few. I said, "What do the rest of you do?" And they had all these things. I said, "You're all in sales." No, no. I said, "Yeah, you are." I said, "Because I'm looking around the room. How many of y'all got? How many of you guys that say you're not in sales have a significant other?" Well, 90% raised their hand. I says, "Well, looking at a bunch of ugly guys in this room, you better believe you're pretty good at sales because you didn't get them on your looks, guys. I'm just telling you, right?" Yeah, you all laugh, but it's
It's
we're
true.
selling something all the time. We're selling ourselves. Um, and I think that's the key that we're winding way back to the start. The biggest product we have or service that we have is what's Brad Randy going to do for you? What's the solution we're going to give you?
Yeah.
Because you don't care about my product at the end of the day. We get all wrapped up in that. It drives me nuts. I think I have the best products in the industry because if you don't believe, you're going to have a hard time. Now, I don't say
Yeah.
convincing. You're going to have a hard time, quote again, selling that to somebody if you don't believe it.
Yeah.
But you know what? Everything I have, you could buy from somebody else. And it's still not going to fail you. It's still going to work for you, right? So the difference is I got to sell you on what I'm going to do for you, the solutions I'm going to bring you, and the confidence level that I'm
Mhm.
in for the long haul. And I think that's the final thing I'd say on that is back to what you said a minute ago. You get away from the transaction today. It's a marathon, not a sprint,
Yeah.
right? And if you look at it as a marathon, and we all love it when you say, you know what, I'm ready to buy right now. You can stop right now. I already decided that I know who you are, Brad, and I know what you're selling. You got the greatest widget ever. Just give me the number, and I'm going to give you a truckload of those widgets. I'm not going to say no, but I got 27 more minutes of stuff I want to tell you. Right? No, no, no. I'm getting the pad out and saying, here we go, sign here, Brad. Right? But all I'm saying is that you got to go into it with the long haul marathon. I'm here to take care of you. And what you hit so well earlier with the Joe Girard story is I want to sell your I want to sell your son when he's running the business. If I'm around long enough, I want to sell your grandson when he's involved in the business, right? And I want you to tell all your neighbors and all your friends, if you're gonna buy this stuff, you got to deal with Randy. Sure, I'll talk to him at least.
Yeah.
That's what you want, right? That's the win. That's the big win.
Word of mouth, baby.
Yep,
That's what you want. You want people to recommend you behind closed doors and at parties.
exactly.
And that's what you're working for. You help organizations with their sales cycle. What is the biggest thing that you can suggest to companies right now with their sales teams?
Uh, I think right now is stay focused on or get focused on change. Change is inevitable. The way we did things 10 years ago is not the way we do things today. There's so many new ways to use technology. I was just before I jumped on with you, I was recording my podcast with a guy and we was talking about AI in the industry and how to use AI and it was a very interesting conversation. You, we have to adapt to what's out there, or we're going to get left behind. And the old school way, and I love the whole hybrid thinking, which is something I talk about a lot, because I think we have to take the old school proven way of one customer at a time, people buying from people, people like you buying who they know, like, and trust, and feel safe with, as Ben will say, and bring that into a more virtual world, using the technologies available to us. We'll you and I have this conversation, and when this show drops, it's going to be seen by tons and tons and tons and tons of people. Or I could go see one person in this length of time if I'm lucky, right? There's so many
Right.
ways, and a phrase I like to use sometimes, and I know you'll love this, is visible in today's world. Visibility equals opportunity. If you're not visible, if you're not out there, it's that not so silent salesman that's out there all day long saying, I don't know, I see this Randy guy everywhere. I see he's writing stuff, and he's on this show, and he's doing this talk, and he's over here, and he's on this board. He's all these. I don't do that for any reason other than I want to give back to my industry. I really do.
Right.
But with that comes the benefactor of that, or the benefit of that, is that's the kind of person I think I want to deal with. If I'm going to, you know, buy this widget, I think I'm going to buy this widget from somebody that's involved, that's active, that cares, and has
Yeah.
proven to care. And so the more you remind people that I'm out there, I'm visible, and so we have so much technology today with social media, with Zoom calls, with um, back in the early days of this transformation for me, I was I was constantly getting on and recording a video and sending a text video to a customer, not just a
Wow.
phone call, or the two things, Brad. One, if I had a quote, for example, right? If I had a quote done, I would do an email. I'd use BombBomb, but I'd do an email, or I mean, I'd do a quick video and say, here, hey Brad, I'm sending you this quote over right now. It's a PDF attached, line 7 and 13 of the two products that we talked the most about. These are the ones you
Yeah.
want to take a look at. I'm going to call you tomorrow about 2 o'clock if that's okay. Have a great day. Cheers. And I'd send it to them.
Hmm.
Nobody else was doing that. They're going, dude, this guy made the extra effort. And I know exactly where to look. And it was unique. And then the other thing I did real quick, I was setting for a Dr. Pepper, which is my code word for a Cabernet, and at a local pub, waiting for takeout from my wife and I, because she runs my office and I was working from home. I hadn't talked to this customer in Montana for a little bit, and so I just set my phone up in front of me, leaned it against my our little napkin holder thing at the bar, and I did this. You have to look because I didn't say a word. All I did is I went, I love you. I didn't say the word. I heart, and pointed and hit send to him. 13 seconds later, he sent me a text back. He said, brother, I was having a pretty shit day. That was just, thank you. That was awesome. So those are the kind of things you just,
Yeah.
when be open to change, be open to things that pop in your head, and just go, there's no rules. There's rules, but there's no rules to some of this, right? Just,
Yeah.
does it feel like I want to do this? I'm going to do it. I'm going to send it to them because it's fun, because it's quirky, because it's witty, because it's crazy, because it's dumb. Whatever it is, people, that makes you a person, and it makes you a person that they want to deal with and that they enjoy. And I mean, I've sent guys things say, important, Brad, don't forget. And then I'll wait a minute. It's your wife's birthday today. You know, that's it,
Yeah.
right? They remembered, but the fact that you remembered and remind them in sort of a quirky, goofy way, I'm going to guarantee you probably no other salesman did that. That's the
Y-
difference.
Dude, you just said something that's just incredibly powerful because this wave of getting authentic took on this very bizarre, um, I don't know, trajectory years ago because everybody started going to a Gary Vaynerchuk event and then they come back
Mm-hmm.
and they're swearing.
Yeah,
People who never swore a day in their life on camera or
right.
anywhere else are now dropping F bombs and thinking
Mm-hmm.
that's the key to success. And really, you're showing what being authentic can really be, and that's just. And I know you. You're Randy. Randy's fun. He's quirky. He's serious about sales, but you've got this great attitude, and you bring that to the table, and that is what today is about. It's really having that authenticity of you and
Yes.
your personality, who actually gives a damn about people. That's
It's
that's really truly a part of what you do. You aren't just doing the transaction. You care about people. We had Larry Levine on our show
great
a
guy.
few episodes ago. Yeah, and selling from the heart. And you encapsulate that, my friend. You're selling from the heart, and I love that. How do people get a hold of you if they need to get a hold of you, my
Well,
friend?
the easiest way is to go to www.ibuyfromrandy.com or .net, because why wouldn't you? Buy from Randy, I mean. I
He's the best. He's the
I just
greatest. I love what this
just
guy's
buy
doing.
just buy from ibuyfromrandy.com. One of the other slogans I use is funny is on some of my banners that I do at trade shows for my, open houses and stuff for my, from that I'm there doing for customers is if I ain't got it, you don't need it. Which is just a it's just a joke, and I
That's
deal a lot
good.
with the plain community, the Amish Mennonite folks. And I remember one time, Brad, he asked me about product. I don't have it, and he goes, and I go, "Hey, you don't need it." He goes, "Well," he was taken aback, and because I delivered it perfect, he says, "I don't understand, Rady. What do you mean? I don't." I said, "You don't need it, Amos." Because I don't understand. I think I do. He goes, "Why do you say I don't need it?" I says, "Because I ain't got it." And we
Yeah.
laughed, and so I put that on stuff. I've got it on some business cards, and I put it on stuff. But that's what I mean about being quirky and being you, right? Because
Yeah.
that's me. Not
Yeah.
saying everybody can do that, because not everybody's quirky and weird, and I just live with it, and that's who I am. But
Yeah.
www.ibuyfrom80.com. You can find me all over all the social medias on either under Building Wins Live, which is my podcast, blogcast, YouTube channel. I'm getting up and going right now for the industry, which is at let's see what it is, at Let's Chat with Randy Chaffee. Because again, let's chat. Why not? And
Yeah.
other than that, you can find me by going to my website. That'll guide you anywhere. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, uh,
Yeah.
wherever. So you find me. Put my name in, you'll find me.
Awesome. Thank you, Randy, for being on
Ah,
Awakened Nation, my friend. I love
ah,
it.
love it. It was my pleasure. Thank you
I
so
love
much.
what you do. It's tremendous.
I know who that is.
Yes. Um, I'm not going to let you go yet
Okay.
because I have three lightning round questions for you.
Oh God, here we go.
Here we go. You ready?
I'm ready. I hope.
The first question I have is, in the sales industry, what do you think is the big lie that companies tell themselves?
Wow. The biggest lie is that without doing all the background work and all the things to make sure it's true, they convince themselves that we're the best, and ergo everybody should buy from us just because we're the best. And they have no backing, they have no proof, and they don't even believe it themselves. You got
Boom.
to believe it. It's got to be right. You
I
got to be
love
the
that.
best if you're going to tell people that.
I agree. I agree on that one. The second question I have is on Building Wins
Mm-hmm.
with Randy Chafee, Building Wins Live.
Yes.
Um, what was either your favorite guest or your favorite moment with the show?
Well, since you can cut me off, it's got to be my favorite guest is you. I mean, what am I going to say?
No, besides me.
Well,
Thanks.
yeah, I do. I've had so many, but I'll tell you, that's a hard one, because I've been so blessed to have every guest I have is good.
Yeah.
And I appreciate them, and they bring a different light and a different view. But I will say the guy that's been brought back the most, and we do need to get you back, by the way, but it's Ben Gay the third. Ben's been
Yeah.
on, he was on the seventh time last week. And I told him,
Wow.
I said, Ben, one of these days you got to quit screwing up and get this right. I mean,
I
how many
know.
times did I bring you back? I mean, you're like the protege of Napoleon Hill and Zig Ziglar and Earl Nightingale. I mean, you'd think you could not screw this up and get it right one of these days. He said, "I'll try, Randy. I'll try." So, but he's always a pleasure. Become such a great friend. Um, Another guy that was really really fun was Dave Sanderson.
Oh,
Dave?
yes. Dave
Yeah,
is great.
I love
Mhm.
Dave. I loved having him on to talk about his story and his book. For people who don't know Dave, he was well known for a lot of things before, but he was the last guy off the plane with Sully when they put it in the river and back
Yeah.
in whatever that was and Miracle
Miracle
on.
on the Hudson.
Yep,
Yeah.
he was the last guy off, and that was a great conversation. And his book is Incredible Moments of Time because I loved his story about we never know when we're going to have that big moment in time. And are
Yeah.
you prepared
Yeah.
or not? Right. So, but that's a couple. I mean, like I said, it's hard because I enjoy and blessed by every guest we've had. But
And you've had some tremendous guests on your show, and I loved your interview style, so I really enjoy it, folks. I'll leave it in the show notes, but you really need to watch Randy's show, Building Wins, because it's more than a conversation. You really get to know the people he's interviewing, and Ben Gay the third is a good friend of mine as well. We've broken bread a few times, had a couple of beers, and people don't realize this about Ben. He has a wicked sense of humor, man.
oh
He
man,
really does.
yeah, really funny. So Wes and I and Wes's daughter Carson, Wes is my producer director. You've met Wes.
Yeah.
We was in Sacramento, and Ben and Gigi drove in West Sac to spend the evening, had dinner, and so I'm sitting at the may have been sitting at the bar having a Dr. Pepper, and Wes calls or Ben calls. He says, "We're pulling up in the car. I'll be in just a second." He says, "Where are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm right at the end of the bar having a drink." He goes, "Oh, where the hell else would you be?" Well, there you go.
True.
But great guy. His wife Gigi's just amazing, and and one more I'll throw out because she's so kind with shouting me out all the time, and I love her is Denise Griffith. You know,
I love Denise. Yeah.
she's become a great friend and supporter. So when you do this stuff for a while, you just meet such great people.
She's
Um,
been amazing.
oh
And
man,
isn't that how we met? It was through her and
her,
Ben
I believe it was.
yeah, big shout out to
Yep.
because Denise, she has been more than a friend. She is actually, I've had some bad, business partner situations. I'm able to call her and talk to her about,
Hmm.
getting out of certain situations. Whenever we've had, some hiccups in life, she lost her brother a few years ago. I got a chance to talk to her about that, but whenever she has a great guest on, she's always like, "Hey, Brad, do you want to interview this person?" I'm
Yeah.
like, "Heck
Yeah.
yeah." She
Yeah.
always finds these amazing people, and she, as I always like to say, she is a light in a weary world.
Oh, love
To
that.
quote
Yes.
either William Shakespeare or Willy Wonka, depending on where you got that quote from. Um,
Love
but
it.
she is just a wonderful person,
Yes, she
really
is.
loving. Yeah,
Yep. Great lady. Well, Brad, thank you so much. Appreciate being on,
sure.
brother.
I have one more question,
Oh, there's
real
one more.
quick.
I thought I see. I was trying.
That's
Did you see
three.
how I
See,
tried to get out of that?
yeah, that's okay. Do you have a favorite memory?
Oh, absolutely. It's easy. It goes back to the farm, and I was about. Let me think about this. 66, about 64. I was 8 years old. Boy, I'm telling my age. Got done eating dinner, and I think I'm going to take the Daisy BB gun and I'm going to head out in the barn and shoot some rats and whatever. And my dad says, "Hey, hurry up and eat. Grab a couple hose out of the garage, and we're going to meet me across the road at Grandpa's. Grandpa lived across the road on the farm."
Yeah.
We stopped to see Grandpa do all that, spitting in his spittoon, and went out in the field and was hoeing weeds. And after a while, I finally had to ask Dad, "Why are we hoeing weeds? Because you just cultivated, which
Yeah.
with the tractor. I mean, he goes, well, because the weeds grow back, and he says, every weed takes a little bit away from the beans that it's growing next to. It takes oxygen, it takes fertilizer, it takes nutrients. And he says, plus, and this was the key. He says, if we're going to do something, it's always best, or it's always you always want to do it your best. And he
Yeah.
said, that's why we come out and do it. And it was a great memory. And the funny thing is, he asked me twice if I followed what he meant. And I kept saying the obligatory, yes, Dad, I get it. But then he asked me to repeat it back, and I didn't get it until I finally got it. But I was 8. But yeah, that was probably the best memory. And actually, that's actually not verbatim, but close to the opening paragraph or two of my book that I'm almost ready to put out because that's how important it was to me.
I look forward to your new book, and thank you,
Well,
Randy,
thank you so much.
for
Appreciate you, brother.
you bet. You've been a great inspiration here today on Awakened Nation. So thank you.
My pleasure. Cheers.
Hey, everybody, tune in next week. We're going to have another extraordinary guest here on Awakened Nation. Don't forget to reach out to Randy. Go check out his website. His new book is going to be coming out. We're going to have him back on again when the book is ready. And until then, bye-bye for now. Thank you so much for being a big part of the Awakened Nation movement. This is how you can help me and our extraordinary guests. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe and share this episode out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And let's grow this movement by word of mouth. Our success is because of you. Thank you, and see you next week.